All right, Jonathan Gunnell is an Australian engineer and Christian, mostly Anglican, but also Baptist and Charismatic Pentecostal, who is keen to see Christianity impact the developing of artificial intelligence governance systems and coming technological changes. And he's also been a great roommate the past day or so.
Okay, I'm doing something completely different and talking about simulation theory. Everyone familiar with that concept? That we're living in, Micah is, we're living in some sort of simulation created by some other being. And I'm going to do it in a slightly different way through this picture of the incredulity of St. Thomas by Caravaggio. And just want to have a look at this picture. So we've got Jesus and we've got Thomas there. And you can see in the Baroque style, he's poking in quite hard there. So I just want to try and work out what's going on in this picture. So this is doubting Thomas. What's that look on his face? Is that doubt?
Surprise?
Yeah, it looks more like surprise. What do you notice about his hand? Is he looking at his hand?
He should have washed it.
He probably should have. He's probably going to very soon. But he's not looking quite at it, is it? So can anyone guess what's actually happening in this picture? All right, I'm going to demonstrate. This is an action snapshot, right, from 2 seconds after Thomas has believed. Can you hear me if I go over here? Yeah, good. Okay, so I'm on the same way around as him. So this is what happened. He was looking like this. Oh, that wasn't good. He was looking like this, and he went in, and he believed. And at that point, he went. And that's when the snapshot was taken. And that's the genius of Caravaggio. And I just want us all to do that. I want us to, because Thomas is the patron saint. Thanks for that. Thomas is the patron saint in Christianity of people who check things out for themselves, right? So I want us all to take our finger like Thomas did, right? We're going to make the Thomas salute, and we're going to poke it in. Poke it in as far as you can, right? That spear went in a long way, right? And then just try it as you relax and draw it out. See what your fingers do, and that's what Caravaggio did. So Thomas embodies, as well as being the patron saint, he embodies the questions that we're all born with. We arrive on earth not knowing anything, and we try and build patterns. We observe patterns of cause and effect. And we ask ourselves, how far back in time do these patterns of cause and effect go? And we can never find an end to that. And so theists and Christians in particular posit the existence of an unmoved mover or a first cause external to that chain of cause and effect that appears to go back to infinity. Otherwise, we have the problem known as infinite regression. Okay. So who's heard the old story of turtles all the way down? I guess most of us in the room have heard that. You've got a flat earth with a turtle, and what holds that turtle up? Well, there's another turtle, and then there's another turtle, and it's all the way down. And that's one of the problems that we have understanding the world. So what existed before the Big Bang? Anyone got an answer to that? The classic answer is nothing. In fact, Richard Dawkins went on Australian television and said it was a special kind of nothing. And everybody laughed. Maybe you've heard of the multiverse, where we get one thing, but that causes another question, and that's what generates a multiverse. So I've got all these multiverses. They must have been coming out of this multiverse generator. Oh, well, good, we've solved that. But hang on, what generated the multiverse generator? I've got a multiverse. We're going to get really fed up with this, aren't we? Yeah. We hear other things. We hear, it caused itself. Okay, well, what enabled it to cause itself? And we hear people say, just accept that it's a brute fact that it just keeps going on forever. That's the brute fact, accept the turtles all the way down, and that's a philosophical nonsense. But the multiverse in particular, it's so disappointing to me that so many people just stop thinking critically when they hear the multiverse generator, because all these things are nothing other than great big hairy scary turtles, no matter how smart they sound. Here's what Paul Davies said on the subject. Invoking an infinity of unseen universes to explain the unusual features of the one we do see is just as ad hoc as invoking an unseen creator. The multiverse theory may be dressed up in scientific language, but in essence it requires the same leap of faith. So, next one. So infinities just don't make sense to us. As well as turtles, I'm going to give two more examples of infinities and why they don't make sense. The night sky is dark, okay? Olber's paradox says that if the universe was infinite and eternal and there was just stars and galaxies going on forever and always had been, then the gaps between the stars would be filled, right? If the multiverse has been going on since forever, then with different kinds of civilizations, at least one must have arisen with the technology to fix everything, so we don't have the problem of evil and the throwaway line that a good God can't allow suffering, etc. So we just cannot cope with these infinities. So we live in a limited universe. We conceive infinity, but just none of these infinities make sense to us, at least not in 4 dimensions. Bertrand Russell famously said, if everything must have a cause, God must have a cause. 2 reasons that's wrong. You might observe that I said, we've got a chain of cause and effect and we've got something external to that. So we didn't say everything must have a cause. We said there must be something external to what we observe from our 4-dimensional viewpoint. And secondly, he was committing the classic pseudo-deductive logic fallacy, which works like this. People with beards are men. Aubrey has a beard. Aubrey is a man. Right, what's wrong with that logic? What's wrong with that logic? The major premise is based on a whole series of observations that you have made many times, and you're just expecting that pattern to continue. So, and even before gender theory, there were females with beards and are. All right. So, hands up. Who thinks we're living in a simulation? Come on, hands up. Oh, come on. I thought we had a faith contingent here. Okay, who thinks we're living in a creation? Okay, so what's the difference between a simulation and a creation? I've got to tell you, a big call out to Jeff the chef at the place we're staying. He mocked my accent when I said the word tomato. I said I wanted tomato in my... And to me, simulation creation is very much tomato, tomato. It's saying that we are living in something that is, in a sense, made, in a sense, artificial's not quite the right word. I guess maybe it could be. I'll skip over this quickly. There's a list of smart people who think it's at least possible or plausible. And I want to come back to Caravaggio here. So in this instant, here we've got 4 dimensions of space-time frozen in 2. Now, physics tells us many things there's many clues that could happen with physics where there's more than 4 dimensions in reality. There's a thing I've seen with 8 dimensions, there's one with 10 dimensions, a theory with 11 dimensions, and there's an old one with 26 dimensions that I found, but no one seems to believe that anymore. So in the same way that Thomas he's forever frozen like that, maybe he's thinking, I should be able to look that way, but I can't. And to us also, we're saying, we should be able to understand and deal with infinities, but we can't. So maybe, just maybe, it's plausible to say that we could be in a simulation. Now the next question is, if we're in a simulation created or made by some advanced beings, why is it so bad? Why? And this is the classic problem of pain, in this case St Matthew's pain, that you'll see at least once a week on Facebook, if not more. And Nick Bostrom, who originally came up with the simulation argument, do you remember why he said his solution to that was? He said that we are a simulation of the ancestors of the people who are simulating it. Now, I'm not sure what kind of sadistic people those ancestors are or what reason they would have to simulate us, because they'd obviously have pretty good records. I don't think that makes sense, but Christianity has always had the sense of the fall. We've always had a doctrine that we were created in first perfectly, and then we fell. And then the story of Christianity is recovering from that. So I then want to just pose a few pure speculative questions here. How should we live if we think we're in a simulation or a creation, and would the simulator give us any hints? And would the simulator attempt to interact with the simulation? So our Christian distinctives on this point is, yes, the simulator did. First he spoke at eye for eye, tooth for tooth. Now some people think that sounds vicious, but compared to the time before that, it was you took my goat, so I'm going to kill you and your family and everybody else. It was a big improvement. Later in the Old Testament we hear, don't take revenge. Vengeance is mine, says the Lord. He's saying restrain that, break the cycle of violence. And then in Jesus we hear, love your enemies and call down blessings on those who persecute you. So for all of those who love exponential growth in this room, that is an exponential growth curve in the way God is dealing with humanity. And that's why we've transitioned from the Old Testament to the New Testament. And we've reached some sort of peak. We believe in Jesus on that. You know, how much better is it to reach out and to make peace with those actively who disagree with us? And who's someone that you really admire in history? You know? So the people that we admire the most, very often they lived by, Christ saying, that's another one, tweet for tweet. Just parenthetically, I think we should go back to this, because I don't think people should lose their house, livelihood and marriage over a tweet, which is what's happening at the moment. I think we've got to turn down the viciousness on social media a bit. The people that we've admired most have lived by acknowledging that they're enemies, the people that they most dislike. You can insert the least favourite politician, be that Trump, Sanders, Clinton, whoever, you can insert that. They've worked by reaching out across the aisle to those people. And here's a quote from one of those guys, and Alexander Solzhenitsyn. The line separating good and evil passes not through states, nor classes, nor political parties, but right through every human heart and all human hearts. So there's an old joke. There's two kinds of people. Do you know what they are? Probably. I like to say there's two kinds of people. Those who divide the world into two kinds of people and those who don't. So let's, as Christians, be part of that latter group and accept that there's one kind of human, right, that they're imperfect. So, Christian transhumanist imperatives in the light of the simulation creation hypothesis, which Elon Musk thinks it's 1 in a billion that we're not. I'd prefer to use the British common law term, beyond reasonable doubt. Firstly, I want everyone to take away from here that this is a highly defensible proposition, that you'll hear a lot of philosophy out there that is wrong-headed, saying we've just got to accept the world that is as a brute fact. That's like saying you couldn't ever work out that chain of cause and effect for yourself. Ask yourself what fits better. The concept of this fall, we don't understand the Genesis allegory. I'm not a young earther, I want to get that out there, but we don't understand this Genesis allegory, or this ancestor concept that we're somehow the ancestors of really smart people who are just doesn't fit for me. Now, Christian heritage has this progression, this exponential growth to a paradigm of moral perfection that we want to see. You know, we want that paradigm of moral perfection. We want AI to have the personality of Jesus, not of Skynet, right? And moral enhancement must and should be the outcome of genuine Christian faith. So as the scriptures say, test yourself. If it's not making a difference in your life, you're getting something wrong. It's up to us to influence society. We're always said to be salt and light for that. And we're also, this particular group, I believe, has a mission to empower the spiritual transformation within the transhumanist community, which those of us who've observed it, has observed a number of divisions and factions within that group. And my last, by way of warning, is we're going to have to deal with the emergence of technological, including biotech and moral enhancements. So whereas we have our exponential growth to perfection, there's going to be competing things coming out of the secular world. I'm not sure what they're going to be, and I'm not sure how we're going to work with it, but we need to take those technologies on board and use them to the best of what's available. All right. That's me. Any questions? Thank you. Aubrey's got a question. This will be a good challenge.
Right, so there are various things that people don't know about me. One of them is that maybe 10 years ago I dated Aurelian.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Aurelian.
Yeah. Now, for those of you who don't know, Aurelian thought it essentially revolves around some guy who said he was taken to a spaceship, but that's not the point I was going to come to. A key tenet of what the Aurelians believe is that we're in a simulation, but a simulation that's not like the way that most people think of simulations, where it's a different substrate, it's running on some hardware, but rather that, we are the product of the creation of another civilization that's obviously more advanced than us, but is living in the same universe.
Yep.
How much does what you're saying translate into that kind of sequence?
Look, I guess that's one possible solution, is that somewhere out beyond Alpha Centauri is a being that has seeded life on Earth to see what happens. Once again, we're in the realm of pure speculation here, Aubrey, but the purpose of my talk was to try to blow apart some of the really bad philosophy that I found on YouTube around, just accept that there's a brute fact that continues on forever, the turtles all the way down thing, and that people who think, Christianity's a creationist and that's just dumb because obviously evolution disproves creation, all those sort of false, really bad thinking. But yeah, you could be right. Oh, okay, so your friend could be right, and that. I don't know how to unpack the theological implications of that. I'll have to go away and think about it for a while. But yeah. Any other questions? All right. Micah.
Well, you've made an argument that, you've kind of a claim that simulation and creation are the same things, right?
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people would kind of balk at that. So what objections do you anticipate to that claim, and how would you answer that?
I think the objections would be around how people are conceptualising it. I don't conceptualise it as hugely different. I think it's like the old watchmaker argument. It's almost an argument from design. I don't think it's out of step with where historical Christianity is at. What might change is we might see it as a bit more hackable. Right? We might change the way, we might see sacredness in a different way. We might say, it might make us quicker to adapt technology to solve our problems is what I'm thinking and hoping. Yeah. Yep, question over here.
Yeah, just to, I guess, sort of continue what Micah was saying. I think in a sense, I agree with you that simulation and creation are the same thing. In another sense, the word simulation seems to convey like if Walt Disney makes a cartoon, it's not like Mickey Mouse is conscious.
Correct.
Like we are.
Yep.
Or maybe he is in some way. I don't know.
Well, you're asking consciousness questions.
I think it's a semantics thing, like if simulation just means that, it's just a work, like in a sense we are a work of art by the Creator, and we are a simulation because He's creating things in His own image.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I think they are the same thing, but I think that in another sense, just the word simulation and creation can kind of fail to convey the same things.
It fails to convey. I mean, there's a whole lot of emotions around the word creation.
Yeah.
It's done with love. It's done with a work of art. Simulation is a bit colder in a sense, but equally so is the watchmaker argument, saying it's a. So.
Yeah. Well, I think that what was I going to say? The argument that, like Elon Musk will say, well, there's a 1 in a billion chance that we're not.
Yeah.
I think that is very compelling. That because we see the possibility of us creating artificial intelligence, and what we create attaining some kind of a consciousness or some kind of a spiritual being, like Kurzweil would say. I think that's super compelling, and that, to me, is where that.
All right. Look, thanks very much.
Us, you know.
Yeah, I'm just conscious of the time. So next one's ready to go. I'm thinking, hoping. Thanks, everyone.